So I learned 10 blender tricks this week that will save me a ton of time moving forward. What's going on, guys? So I learned a bunch of tricks this week that I really wish I learned 4 years ago, but I know them now and they're going to save me a bunch of time moving forward. So starting off here, weight paint in pose mode. So one of the issues I often have is I weight paint my character when it's in T-pose and everything seems fine until I start trying to animate and move the pose around and it starts deforming. So weight painting in various poses allows me to fix the deform issues immediately rather than going back and forth between edit and pose mode hundreds of times. So I spent countless hours redoing weight painting as I thought that was the issue. However, I learned that adding a simple edge loop at joints, it could be the fingers, knees, shoulders, wherever there's a joint, scale X -1. Now this could be scaled in the X, Y, or Z. This also worked great for UV mapping. For example, if you only have one texture of a right sleeve, you could use SX -1 to inverse the scale and map the right arm and left arm to the same right sleeve texture. With all the hairstyles and equipment I've been making for my character, the hierarchy of my Blender files is getting very cluttered. So I learned that I can make separate Blender files and separate objects in those files, and they still link to the character as long as they have the Armature modifier on them, and they're linking to that specific armature. I love automatic weight painting, but it doesn't work too well when bones are very close together. Then you have to spend time zeroing out the weight paints that shouldn't be there. I can now just transfer weights between objects without having to redo the weight painting every single time. This is another huge time saver going forward. Propagate the shapes. I don't know how much time I've spent making blend shapes for my character creator, then changing the base mesh just to find out that my eyebrow thickness blend shape is now deforming my character's hand I just edited. It's just select the mesh that you changed and then vertex propagate the shapes to fix the issue. Early on when I was animating, I had to move every single bone depending on the animation. However, I should have been using rigs such as the IK and hand rig. This saves a ton of time as you only have to move one bone and it moves all other bones that should move along with it, with the proper location and rotation. When posing my character, I often waste a lot of time clicking the wrong bone as they're in the way and they all look the same. With the various rigs and custom bones, you could basically use a few bones to move the character and hide the rest. In addition, you can make any shape you want for any of these bones. Common ones are circles for the hands, fingers, and hips, and you could also use spheres or pretty much any shape you want for any bone. Pose library allows you to save animation poses for not only body poses but facial poses as well. This is amazing as I can create an angry facial expression and then apply that to the future animations, such as a combat animation without having to move the face bones manually again. I've always had the issue of making a model and then the thickness was off. The scale tool works fine for square objects, but when you're trying to thicken more complex mesh, such as arms, legs, things like that, it only scales in the XYZ. So shrink fatten actually scales based on the mesh normals. So essentially it does what a solidifier modifier does, except that you could do it in edit mode. And a quick recap here. Weight paint in pose mode, I'm now able to fix mesh deformities due to weight paint issues while animating. Adding edge loops at joints prevents pinching. SX -1, instant way to flip mesh and UVs in edit mode. I can now have hundreds of different meshes that animate with the character without the clutter. I now know how to copy weights from other objects to the vertex groups of the active object. Propagate the shapes will apply selected vertex locations to all other shape keys. Different rigs save a ton of time when animating, also work extremely well with custom bones. Custom bones drastically reduce bone clutter and make specific bones easier to find. Pose library, you could save facial and body poses to speed up the creation of new animations. And finally, an amazing way to create clothing for your character, or just thicken or thin out the mesh in edit mode. Thanks for watching, and if you guys have any tips to share, let me know in the comments below.